We're joined today by Justin Podbielski, a financial planner with Barnum Financial Group. Justin's focus is on achieving financial freedom for his clients and working hard to help them understand their financial possibilities. He talks with us about his career in the industry, his work in the nonprofit world, and the lessons he's learned along the way. I'm Paul Blanco, and this is Small Steps, Big Wins. Well, Justin, welcome to Small Steps, Big Wins. I'm so happy to have you on today.
I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me, Paul.
You got it. And, I was very happy to see you face to face. Most of them are on Zoom, and it's really good to see you today. And for all of you here, Justin was very official today. You suited up and you look like the old days. So I love that. I love seeing that. And I was the one that held on the longest, and I've been the worst since we went to a looser dress
I still
code.
wear a tie at work every day.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm so happy to have you, as I said. And I guess where I want to start is let's start in the beginning. You've been in the business 15 years. What made you come in? And I kind of wrote a note for myself, and I said that it was sort of your calling that you realized pretty quickly when you came into the career. So why don't you start right there?
Well, I would say it didn't start as my calling. And I think this industry chose me and not the other way around. A lot of things in my life led me down various paths where I was able to travel and see the world and do a lot of adventurous things in Central America and Europe, et cetera. And I was probably voted least likely to end up in Connecticut when I graduated high school. But it's one of those things that, unfortunately, life kind of dealt me a hand where I had to make some decisions that kept me close to my family. My mother got, she was sick for a long time in my life, but she took a turn for the worse while I was traveling in Guatemala. And when I came home, things weren't not looking good. So I needed to get a real job since she was the only income source in the family, and my brother and sister were still finishing up school. So, I a little kicking and screaming of kind of, letting go of some of those dreams of saving the world and traveling and, the path that I was on in academia. I knew that I needed to be there for my family and get something that was going to, be a big boy job and actually pay. So I decided to put my resume out there, and it was one of those random things that just fell into my lap. And I was looking at a lot of different opportunities, and this was by far the best fit for me and who I was as a person. And the upside was definitely attractive, and the flexibility of being able to do what I needed for my family as my mother was battling cancer, taking her doctor's appointments, et cetera. I needed that flexibility, but I've always been an entrepreneur at heart, and being in a spot where I could help people, be close to home, have the flexibility to take care of my family when I needed to, and really see the future for whatever I wanted to make it. And that, being able to kind of carve out this path for myself in this industry was something that I was really drawn to.
Well, it's interesting when you said that it was the best fit of everything. Did you mean what you just said, that it was that you knew you were entrepreneurial and you needed something that kind of took the cuffs off and let you do what you wanted to do?
So I went to school at UConn, go Huskies. They just, won the national championship. Yes. I'm very, very proud fan right now. The women also had a great finish, overcoming a lot of adversity with injuries they faced this year, got in the Final Four. So very proud to, be a Husky. So, going through my academic path, my upbringing was challenging. I had a single parent. My father left when I was 6. I started working as soon as I could at 14. As soon as I turned 14, I started working 100 hours a week. And I was fortunate to have it easy in school. School kind of came naturally to me, but I was a very hard worker, 3-sport athlete, involved in, I think, 11 different clubs at different points in time, because I knew that I needed to carve my own path. And, I never really had a lot of direction. I knew I was good at school, and I knew I cared about being a good person and wanted to make my mark on the world, but I didn't know what that meant. And I didn't have a lot of people kind of telling me what options I had. So I just focused on getting good grades and getting into good schools, and was fortunate to get a full ride to a few different places, and chose to go to UConn again because it was close to home.
Yep.
And when I was there, I just really found myself, and I became more of an individual. And, I was actually really shy growing up, and it's really not normal for that to be, your personality type when you're in this job. But, I've learned how to overcome some of those anxieties of meeting new people and, just introducing myself and what I'm all about. And I wouldn't say that I am shy now, but I definitely started that way. And going through UConn, I was fortunate enough to be nominated by UConn as their Rhodes and Marshall Scholar nominee. And, you're thinking about big questions about what you want to do with your life when you're, tapped on the shoulder and said, we think you can be a Rhodes Scholar. And in that path, I decided that I was going to ask myself big questions and have audacious goals. And, I went to Guatemala and I tried to start a nonprofit. And that was really my first entrepreneurial experience.
Amazing. And,
I was very drawn to this idea of saving the world. And it turns out the world didn't really want to be saved. And it was a lot harder than I really thought it was going to be when I had this kind of, academic origin story of why I wanted to get into the nonprofit world. And I had a lot of people around me, professors and family and friends that were supportive of that vision and that dream. But, my family circumstances, my mother's health took priority, and I needed to kind of pack up that vision, but I didn't lose that sense of I can do something here that hasn't been done before, and that I can really use my skills and my network and my passion towards life and make sure that I leave the world better than I found it. And
love it.
I try to live that every day. And, some days I feel like I have more of, walking home or driving home kind of feeling a sense of pride. And other days I'm just exhausted and wondering where the day went. But I know when I look out at the future and I look back at where I've come from, that I'm proud of what we do for a living, and I'm proud of this industry and the impact we make on people's lives.
Well, that's interesting. And I love that, because when you think about what you just said about saving the world and making an impact, and that was the genesis of what you were doing. And then you had the entrepreneurism, but you came into a career where you impact lives every single day, as you said, that drive home. So how did that feel? You make this decision now, you give up the road that you were traveling, literally traveling, and you come into this industry and you're brand new. What was it like in the beginning?
I mean, I think that it's one of those jobs. I think a lot of people talk about how hard it was, and it was hard, but it was something that I gamified a little bit, and I kind of looked around and I saw other people at different points in their career and what they were doing and how they would talk to clients or on the phone or how they carry themselves. And I was able to steal some of that and kind of shortcut here and there as far as language, as far as work ethic, as far as how I carried myself, and then find what worked for me. And whenever I talk to anyone who's newer in the industry as an advisor, I say that the secret is finding a professionalized version of who you really are, like your true self. And you don't need to sound like me. You don't need to say it the way that I say it, but there's things that I'm doing that you can learn from.
Yep.
But if you don't come to this meeting or to this phone call with a genuine version of who you are and just learn how to polish that up in a way that you can come to market in a way that people want to work with you. And that's an ongoing thing, right? So that, life of learning and life of kind of self-improvement and self-reflection is something that, I try to embody and make sure that I'm always sharpening my axe and making sure that I'm learning new things.
I love that. And when you think about it, one of the tips I always give new people, new entrepreneurs that could be in our industry or not, is find mentors and find a mentor. And also watch what people do and I have people that have mentored me. They have no idea they were mentors of mine, how they communicated and how they handled themselves. So that's a really great strategy that you had, and it's worked, and then you make it your own. So don't, for all the people listening, don't make that part of your life, because I think that really works in all avenues. So I love that. You hit the ground running, you start doing that, you fast forward, you had some good success early on. What do you think? Was there a turning point where you realized I made the right decision? This is my career. And then, I'm in it full speed ahead.
Well, like I said, I started because my mother had cancer, and it took a turn before I, was even looking for this career path. And then she passed away my first year in this job. And that's by most measures the hardest year to start this business.
Yes.
You're learning, no one knows who you are. You don't know anybody. You don't know anything. You're just kind of figuring things out as you go. And I put in the hours, but I had all this other stuff going on around me. And once the dust settled after she passed away, I kind of started to think about, okay, now what, right? What am I going to do to honor her memory? What am I going to do to make sure that my brother and sister have that foundation so that they can go and chase their dreams in school? And the conversations around like what life insurance did for my family when my mother passed away, and how our struggles and journeys kind of resonated with like, wow, this really is an important thing that I've lived through. And I can go back to times where, like, I think 14 or 15, I was the one paying the family bills and sitting at the kitchen table because my mother lost her eyesight, so she wasn't able to do that stuff anymore.
Wow.
So I was writing out the checks, and I, helped her craft a will and meet with the attorney, and I would go to the doctor's appointments and help make sure that we weren't missing anything. And I really had to grow up in my family fast. And, she taught me a lot about tenacity. She was such a hardworking person. She often had 3 jobs at any given time. And she was trying to run a business from home after losing her eyesight, where she would have to record people's phone numbers so she could call them back. It was amazing to watch her struggle and how she approached it with such tenacity is the only word I can think of.
It's amazing.
So I used that fire to kind of make this job and make this career matter to the people that I worked with. And every time I met with anybody, I wanted to just, shout from the rooftops about all the stuff that they should be doing. And not everybody follows your advice, but yes. I tried to walk into every conversation with an idea of just come here and add value and do the right thing. And doing the right thing is, really core to who I am. I believe in the work that we do. And I believe that we can help people. And if we gloss over some of the knowledge we have because we're running out of time or whatever, and we don't see who we're actually talking to and be where our feet are and actually engage in that person's life, you have a moment right there in that first meeting to make an impact on somebody's future. And using my story really helps, kind of punch above my weight class, I guess, as far as my age goes. And I was able to gain a lot of trust and confidence in clients because I knew what I was talking about early. I took my CFP classes seriously as soon as they were offered. I constantly read, and I made sure I was prepared for every conversation I was having so that I didn't have to feel like I had to apologize for something later that maybe I didn't fully know that what I was talking about. And then I teamed early. Brian Paquette and I have been working together on a formal team since I think 2012. And at the beginning, it was just about cost sharing. We wanted to bring in a staff member, and neither of us could afford it on our own. And we knew we needed the help on the processing and operational side of things. But we quickly learned that we had different skill sets, and we would just do case design together and bounce ideas off each other. And that helped us see ourselves like, oh crap, this is a business, right? And it's not just me going and talking to people, but I'm actually running a business, and then start to chart out what the future looked like.
Yeah, which is really exciting. And we'll get into later where the team is today. But when you think about clients and the knowledge that you need, like diving right in and reading in the CFP, and I think that separates yourself from the pack because you became a lifelong learner, and you still are today. Mm-hmm. And I watch you at meetings and how attentive and how you're trying to grab what you can. And then, as you said earlier, I think a big thing that Justin's done is make it his own, right? Let's fast forward though to today. So your team is obviously, different than it was when you and Brian started in 2012. Why don't you tell us a little about your team right now?
Yeah. So I would say that 2024 is definitely an inflection point in our team and in our business and in my life. We have a lot of great things going on. So I look back and say, what other inflection points were there? Starting this job in 2009 in the height of the Great Recession.
Yep.
And the height of a really horrible chapter for my family, going through the CFP and getting that designation in 2013, all the knowledge of really knowing and being confident in what I knew and how that knowledge could help people was another one. Teaming with Brian around the same time period, another inflection point. 2017, we merged with other advisors in the office. Brian Bednar is and his team, and Stan has since retired from financial advising, but Dan Champagne, who I did the CFP classes with, he was always kind of our water cooler. We had kind of geek out about financial stuff. He's just my financial nerd counterpart. He came in, Social, who's my significant other, she also, came to the team at the same time. And we used that collective group to really expand what our value proposition was and bring in more, internal operational partners. And that's grown. So right now we are going from 12 total team members. We just literally hired this past week 3 new internal operational team members.
Congratulations.
So we're going to be 15 by May 1st. And then we're going and bringing on 2 new junior advisors this summer, probably for the August class.
Love it.
So we'll be 17 by September. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to be as much as 20 by the end of the year.
So you're truly scaling up your practice so you can continue to do more and impact more lives and everything to that nature that you're doing right now. Yeah.
And it's about leverage, and we're ready for it. Like there's so many things that we can be proud of, how we come to market and how we serve our clients. And there's bottlenecks in the nature of our business all over the place that we're trying to kind of weed out and figure out, okay, this needs to stop being this person's job. We need to move this over here as we scale and as we grow the complexity of the type of work that we're doing. And that's the depth of the type of planning that we're doing and the way that we service clients, going deeper with an existing client or going deeper with a referral, is really important to our future success, because there's so many areas that our industry touches people's lives. And there's so many different ways that you have to be ready based on the circumstances of who you're in front of to truly help them, instead of just having to say, I'm sorry, that's not my specialty. Here's a business card for somebody else. So being able to kind of take certain pages out of the family office model and adapt to where I think the industry is going. And I would say that scale of how many people we serve, right? And being able to impact more people. And it's changed my day to day. And so much, I would say, half of my time is spent more on the team stuff. And it's, between the portfolio and the management of our team's vision and the day to day of where the business is going. So wearing that CEO hat takes up a lot of bandwidth, but it's a totally different challenge.
Yeah, you just you took the words out of my mouth. I was going to ask you, how has your role evolved? So when you think of the future, what will that mean for your role?
I think we're sort of at that crossroads now where how I explain it to my team is that, like, when I first started, I didn't have anything in the pile in the side of the room. My job was to go create the pile, right? And then that pile got bigger, and I was just like, okay, I need to work longer to get through that. And then it got bigger, and I needed to work faster to get through it. And then it got bigger, I needed to hire somebody to get through it. But I still always got to the bottom of that pile. And now I'm in this spot where, like, that pile's not going away. Like, there's no way that I can work enough hours. I could work every minute of every day. Yep. And there's a limitless amount of knowledge, a limitless amount of people who need our help. So in order for me to make my sphere of influence as impactful as I can, I need to think more about being a thought leader and being a leader of the organization and helping use the roadmaps that I used to serve my specific clients to help other people serve their clients. And,
right.
Getting those areas of the process off of my plate that I still, sometimes find myself doing out of habit that I know my team is more than qualified and probably better at than I am anyway. Why am I still answering that email, or why am I still doing this, paperwork or something like that? So.
Yeah. And that takes a level of discipline that you need to look inward and say, okay, I can do this. And that's hard, but that's part of evolving as an entrepreneur.
And I would say that a big shift for me personally in terms of how I view myself as a leader is realizing that the reason why I initially hired help and expanded the team was because I needed to get something off my plate. And it kind of came from a selfish part of, like, I'm busy and I need help with this. So it's more about, like, but it came back to me seeing myself doing more client meetings or doing more of the stuff that I enjoyed doing. And that's been true. But looking forward, it can't just be about that selfish angle. I need to see myself as a servant leader that is there to help other people's professional journeys as well. And that's a different skill set that I'm working on, right? And being able to communicate clearly, to be organized, to end a meeting on time, which is not something I'm good at, to set expectations and not set such ambitious goals that we're not going to be able to execute them, because, not everybody's as high a quick start as I am, where I might throw out 10 things and I am okay if we get 7 out of the 10, and other people just aren't okay with that. So just really prioritizing and laying out that vision in a way that people can actually wrap their minds around it and work towards it.
There's so many things that you just said that you could, as you're listening here, make sure you rewind that and unbundle. There was like 5 different pieces that you hit there. So I think that's really amazing. When you think, Justin, like this evolution, you say these inflection points of your career. I think a big inflection point for the industry, and especially for Barnum, was COVID. And COVID had lots of challenges and lots of bad stuff, but there was a lot of good stuff that came out of it too. And I think using the technology like Teams and Zoom has really changed our ability to impact more people and more people on this wide net nationally. Have you seen that with your team, and how are you guys looking at that?
I mean, there's no doubt that COVID changed a lot of aspects of the way that we live our lives and run our business. And I'm a glass half full type person. And I would say, that was for sure the silver lining. And we had Jackson right before COVID. So we were able to spend a lot more time watching him as a baby. And, that was really rewarding for me as a father, being able to sit, come home, not meaning coming home, but walking downstairs and being able to, take a coffee break and see how he was doing, making dinner together every night. So it was really good from a refocus standpoint on what, we were all working for. Not having to drive. We still see a good amount of people face to face, primarily in the office, but I would say we're 70% Zoom at this point. Paper was all over the place before. It's nowhere to be found now.
It's another one that happened very quickly too.
Just, being able to use DocuSign as such a time saver, and it just speeds up the process so much. But it changed the mindset a lot too. And it was a scary time for people. I think people really, aside from looking at the stock market was the least of people's concerns in 2020, it was a scary time. So being a presence of reassurance for our clients and being able to just reach out and say like, hey, we're still here. And, we're on top of it. Here's what's going on in your portfolio. Really deepened that bond with our existing clients as well. And I would say our processes of just how we organize our information, we were forced to do things that we wouldn't have had to do if COVID didn't happen. But for me, the technology component, I think technology is often seen as like a replacement for the financial advisor, like the whole fintech fear and like, is AI going to replace us all, and all of the areas of that. And if you, think of it that way, then maybe you will become obsolete because you're not embracing it. But if you embrace technology as a tool and really let it change what you think of as your job, right? Like the origin of financial services was very transactional in nature. Like you needed a human being to place a stock trade. You needed a human being to buy a life insurance policy or to set anything up, because somebody with a license had to actually execute that transaction. And technology has made that part unnecessary. So the industry has had to shift away from a transactional relationship to one of advice. And in that sense, we're very similar to the medical profession or to legal profession in the sense that we have a moral and ethical standard that we have to live up to make sure that we're operating in our lane, but also knowing that the advice that we are giving is on the same side of the table as our clients in terms of our incentives.
Yeah.
So when I think about the future, right, what technology is going to continue to get even more complicated or more, to replace more and more of the steps in the process. And I'm welcoming that with open arms because I think that what we do is not replaceable. Like it's just the actual value that we bring to clients' lives as human beings who care about other human beings and are doing the right thing, is something that we're just going to get better and better at, because the depth of our advice and the breadth of the things that we can actually solve for is going to get that much faster and that much more robust the more technology evolves.
Well, it's interesting. If you look at some of the stats right now, I agree with you 100%. And I want to say the number's like $89 trillion in motion from now to 2045.
Right.
Industry's shrinking. More advisors are going to have to do what you're doing, is continue to scale if they want to get more and more of that opportunity that's sitting out there in the marketplace.
Yeah. And I mean, I was saying that I think we're at an inflection point, but I look at our team now and, the average advisor age in our team is 33. The average advisor age in the industry is in late 50s.
Probably even higher.
But the average amount of years of experience on our team is more than a decade. So like we are experienced, but we have a long runway ahead of us. And, we can come to a client meeting with confidence. Like we know what we're talking about. We're going to be here for a long time to make sure that you don't have to, change your advisor in 5 years into retirement. Like we're going to be here, and we're building a business around us that's going to outlast us. And that, legacy of what the enterprise that we're building is going to become, that'll materialize and crystallize over time. But, I truly believe that we have an obligation to make sure that it's not just Justin meets with clients, but that this path that we're creating for other advisors to follow and for our entire team to serve our community and to serve our clients, the sky's the limit.
I love this. And I think one of the challenges today in our industry was, I think back when I came in, and it was only the protection side of the business. And then, assets under management became much bigger in the early 2000s. And I think there's a different advisor today that doesn't understand some of them, the emotional side of the business that it takes. Now, obviously you were forced into having that happen earlier for you based on the stuff that happened at home with your mom. And that caused you to have that why so strong. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like it's not just you now, you've shared that with the whole team, and that's your mission to impact as many lives as possible.
So when I first started and I was in a cubicle, I had a piece of paper with 2 words that were bolded and put right over my computer screen, which was activity and integrity. And I would just work hard and do the right thing, right? And it's evolved, and our guiding ethos as a team is now integrity and intelligence, which I summarize as do the right thing and know what the right thing is. You have to know what you're doing. And every single person on my team embodies that. Like I never have to worry about somebody on my team doing something that I wouldn't approve of if I wasn't in the room, right? Like I know that they share that value system and that we all just want to be good at what we do and care about the clients and the things that we're doing to help them. So being focused on that impact of, and it's primarily our clients, but it's also in our communities and our extended families and our entire team, those who are salaried, we know that we can provide a career path and stability in their financial and professional journeys that wouldn't exist if we didn't come together and say, this is what we're going to build.
Yeah, I love it. So as you evolve from an advisor to a CEO, and obviously still keeping your advisor role, right? Is there certain times of the day, or is there habits that you've created that have helped you move that along and continue to evolve on? Because you're really serving 2 masters now. Is there things that you had to do differently as a leader?
I think that having kids was more of a change in that habit than anything. I would, before having kids, if I was home before 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, I would like look around and not know what to do with myself. I just felt abnormal to not be working past 9. And that was just the way that I worked. And I like working, and I talk about retirement a lot, and social often jokes that I will never retire because I do just find so much fulfillment in going to work and working hard. But now that I have kids, I want to make it home for dinner, which, I wish I could do every night. And sometimes I can't, but I'll put them to bed, and then I'll plug in a lot of times after, 8:30 and just work until I get my work done until sometimes 12 or 1. And that's not every night. And I've found a much better work-life balance as I've expanded my team. And I know that not everything is on me. But if I'm looking towards this next chapter of this CEO role, I'm spending a lot more time reading and learning and thinking and reflecting and kind of planning things out. And in order for that to work, I have to pass off certain, client relationships to other members of my team so that I have that bandwidth. But I think that the processes that we've built and the technology tools that we have at our disposal just allow us to add the same value faster, and be able to do both. But what the future holds, I think I'm going to have to face some tough changes and challenges to make sure that I can maintain those promises to both masters, as you say.
Yeah, which is hard. You had a lot of challenges mentally early on in your career. But was there anything that happened that you said, holy mackerel, this is tough and I got to fight through this one? Or is there a point in the career where you were doubting yourself?
A lot of those, moments were more about the stuff that was going on at home than it was about the job itself. I think Mike said this, Mike Lynch on your podcast, like, this job isn't complicated. It's just hard, and it is hard, but it's also doable. And it's something that I've always had that work ethic to, work harder and faster than everyone else. And I tell people, in the Glastonbury office, just because you're here in a suit doesn't mean you're working. Like, you actually have to be focused on something that's going to move the needle. The opportunity is so great, and our careers in life is short. So I want to make sure that we're not leaving anything for tomorrow. So it's just squeezing the last bit of juice out of that lemon before you leave for the day. And that's why I'm, late to a lot of things, because I will always say, like, oh, I can get one more thing done. And I'm going to say that one last email as soon as that's done. And then there's something else after that. So I keep on kind of stacking those things up. But when I was first looking at the organizational structures and how the changes in the industry were coming, that complexity is what makes me find fulfillment on this job.
I was going to say that. I can say that you like that stuff.
I do. And it's like, that Rubik's Cube of figuring out that puzzle and like how this is going to change the way we have to do things like that. I get excited about that stuff. So I try to look at every challenge as like, well, that's just going to make it so that I have to shift and adjust. And that process of figuring things out and adapting to change is just part of my MO. That's the quick start in me.
Yeah, it's interesting. Someone else that was on the show recently reminded me of a saying that I've been saying for many years: if it's not broken, break it.
Yep.
And you're doing that each day. And it's an industry that evolves sometimes fast and sometimes slow. Mm-hmm. And locally, if you could evolve fast, it makes a big difference. So my last one for you today is that, 2024 is your next big inflection point, which you shared earlier, growing the team, by 30%, which is a big deal. Mm-hmm. You're definitely ready based on all the preparation you've done that. What's keeping you out? What's next like on that? So
I'm trying to find ways to add more value and impact through thinking through where the client's at. I listen to a lot of different podcasts. I'm a nerd who loves finance. So I like Michael Kitces. His,
sure.
podcast, Kitces and Carl, has a lot of different stuff on it. And recently I was listening to one where they're talking about the old financial plan where you were a successful financial planner based on how many things you could find wrong with a client's financial situation, right? Like if you had 8 things that you could improve, 8 recommendations, you were good. If you had 10, you were better. If you had 13, you were great. If you had 15, you were the best of the best. And I kind of approached a lot of client situations like that. Like, oh, you can do this, 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 and this. And, a lot of times I would get that glazed over look from clients. Like, I didn't really understand everything you said. It sounds good, but I don't. And if you don't get to that point where they're actually taking action, then you're not really doing anything besides hearing yourself talk.
The acronym is KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid.
Exactly. So, changing that focus to like if measuring success by the amount of percentage of your recommendations that actually get implemented, and trying to think about meeting the client where they are and educating them through their financial decision that's in front of them. And I would say 50% of our job as financial advisors is more behavioral finance. And that emotional management of not just understanding the terms, like, okay, what is this versus that? And why are we doing it this way versus that way? And I've always been an educator, and I've always walked people through that process of, this is why this makes sense, and I want you to understand it. So I'm like a financial professor more than I am, financial advisor.
It's great though.
But as I've matured, and those knowledge points become just kind of second nature, and you just kind of know off the top of your head the answer to certain questions. You deepen this relationship with your clients over a decade plus of knowing them, and you see where they're struggling and what their goals actually were, that they said that were their goals really didn't come from a place of like foundational core to who they are. What do I mean by that? You think through, most people just say, I'm going to retire at 65, or most common questions like, when do you want to retire? Tomorrow. It's the most common answer. And if you walk through with somebody and say, okay, well, if I could show you how to retire a year earlier, would you do that? Oh, that would be interesting. Okay. And then you actually walk them to that point and they say, I'm not ready. Right. So why are they saying they're not ready? And if you can show them that financially they're ready, it's because retirement and finance and legacy has so many other parts of that person involved in them that you're just looking at projections and numbers on a piece of paper, and what they're financially ready to do, but if they're not emotionally ready. So is that our job too? I think it resoundingly is. And
you're becoming a financial coach.
Yeah. And the legacy component, right? Like, I know what my mother's, kind of what she was proud of when she passed away, and she was proud of a lot of our accomplishments, but we were very young. So she didn't see a lot of what we were going to become, but she just knew we were good people. And all of my siblings were very hardworking, good people. But asking those questions of like, why are we doing all of this stuff? And once you get past this, like, food, shelter, water is taken care of, financial achievement, what's the reason behind it beyond that? And, something that we're tinkering with right now is creating a values time capsule and being able to use the recordings of people who have set up their trusts and set up their wills and set up their legacy to their kids and their kids and people that in the generations to come. That multi-generational wealth often gets kind of oversimplified based on tax solutions and how it's going to be legally owned and who the beneficiaries are and who the decision makers are. But you're passing on way more than just, an account. You're passing on all of the things that led to that creation. So it came from a thing my mother did before she passed, where she knew that she only had a few months to live, and she knew that she wasn't going to meet a lot of her grandchildren. She met her, my older sister's first son before she passed, and he was 1 when she died. And she recorded the night before Christmas from a book that she'd gotten from CBS that just was her reading a story. And in her mind, it was just her reading the night before Christmas to her grandchildren she hadn't met yet. And, I didn't have kids then. I didn't even know if I was going to have kids, but now being a father, like, it's just such an emotional thing to know that was done. And I want to be able to create that same lesson to be able, how cool is it to get to that point when somebody's life where you're able to have that position of friendship and trust, where you can say, like, this is who you are. And these are things that we can, create an ongoing, repeatable message.
Love it. Well, you have that already. And I just want to say, your mom, you started out with your journey and your why, and your mom is definitely watching and saying, thank you, because you're impacting so many lives and living out her message. And I think that's amazing. And I'm super proud of you, what you've accomplished, what your team has accomplished, where you're going. And here's the thing that's, I think, the best of what I've heard today is, when you look at a journey in life, if you believe that you've never arrived, you'll continue to keep pushing. And you use the analogy of, I just love working and tinkering, but you also love pushing yourself to get better each day. And you're a lifelong learner. Obviously, you started out in academia. That was where you were going, and you've continued that journey in financial services. So I'm glad your path ended this way, and super proud of what you've accomplished. And I know, as I say all the time, the best is yet to come. So Justin, thank you. And, once again, small steps, big wins. You're doing that and you're living it each day. So congratulations on what you've done.
Thanks for having me, Paul, and thanks for everything.
You got it. Thank you for listening to Small Steps, Big Wins Please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
All opinions expressed by the program participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions their respective parent companies or affiliates or the companies with which the program participants are affiliated. Investments or strategies mentioned in this program may not be suitable for you, and you should make your own independent decision regarding them. This material does not take into account your particular investment objectives, financial situation, or needs, and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. You should strongly consider seeking advice from your own investment advisor. Securities and investment advisory services offered through qualified registered representatives of MML Investor Services, LLC. Member SIPC, 6 Corporate Drive, Shelton, Connecticut, 06484, telephone number 203-513-6000.